With the 2014 Winter Olympics coming up, what better time than now to talk about art depicting athleticism?
I couldn't agree more, Rosalie. What are we looking at?
We're looking at a Roman marble version of the original bronze discus thrower, or Diskobolos, made by the Athenian sculptor Myron of Eleutherai in 450 BC. This one's believed to be the best fit for the original and is located in the Term Museum of Rome.
What do we know about the original?
From early Roman authors, we know that the athlete had his head turned backwards, was looking at the discus, had his right knee flexed, and that this sculpture rendition was made for the moment right before he launched the discus.
Now, why marble? Why not keep it bronze like the original?
Good question. Marble has that extra support system that bronze does not, struts. The struts help take the pressure off the rest of the sculpture.
What else did the Romans change about the discus thrower that we know of?
They shifted the attention from the athlete to artist. While the Greeks mainly celebrated the athlete, the Romans switched that around, paying more attention to the artist, and as a result, the athlete's name was lost through time. The book A Companion to Greek Art believes this is what most likely happened to Myron's Diskobolos, and it credits Rome with helping this viewpoint change. It states that, quote, the statue turned into a work of art for Romans in a new Roman setting, end quote.
So the Romans changed the way the sculpture was viewed, from a victor's trophy to an artist's artwork.
Precisely. Now in this piece, what do you see?
Well, I feel anticipation because I'm waiting for him to throw it.
Yes! The Online Museum of Greek Art and Archaeology explains this in their article Diskobolos by Myron, where they say that Myron chose to depict, quote, the moment with the most tension possible, end quote. You can see that tension in the flexed right knee and the extended arm with the discus.
But I think Myron was also dynamic. I also see a sense of calmness.
Good observation. He was definitely portraying more than just tension. If you look at the way both arms make equally elongated arcs, which both intersect at the back, it makes the figure look perfectly balanced.
It creates a sense of continuity and harmony. It looks unified rather than chaotic.
And note that this existed during the classical period where the popular pose to sculpt was the contrapposto one, which also depicts balance. Myron found a new way to do this.
So this must have stood out in its time.
It did indeed.
It's clearly different from the sculptures of its time, but are there any similarities?
Of course. For one, contrapposto sculptures like Polyclitus' Doryphorus and the Diskobolos portray a generalized human.
And we can see this in his face. It doesn't look personal at all.
Like you noticed, it's true. The face is expressionless, emotionless. The eyebrows and mouth are straight, showing no emotion, and the eyes vacant.
Yes, there's also a sense of inspiration to this piece. It makes it look like humans have no limits.
Absolutely. This figure shows humanism. Even if you've never heard of the sport, the figure communicates the idea that he has knowledge of what he's doing.
If I didn't know any better, I'd say he's showing perfect technique.
I second that thought. His perfect posture reflects his knowledge of discus throwing, and it makes the viewer feel like he'll be successful in his throw without knowledge of the results. Ultimately, this piece is celebrating sophor sign.
What's that?
It means able-mindedness or wholeness.
And isn't that what all humans desire, to have optimal health, self-control, and knowledge?
I know I do. And so it's not surprising that this piece was popular for its time period as it is today. It transcends more than just balance and tension. It also celebrates humanity for what it can become and achieve. Now let us look at what is considered, at least to some, to be the most famous painting in the world, the Mona Lisa by Leonardo da Vinci, finished in 1517. How it rose to fame is sort of up for debate, but some believe it rose in popularity after it was stolen in 1911.
Yes, Rosalie, that is correct. According to the journal article Politics of Possession, on August 21st, 1911, the world's most famous work, the Mona Lisa, was stolen from the Louvre in Paris. The thief, an employee of the Louvre, Vincenzo Perugia, an Italian patriot, thought the painting belonged in Italy.
As mentioned, you said it caused the Mona Lisa to become more popular. How so?
Well, apparently the initial reaction to the theft of the Mona Lisa was denial. Thousands of people came to the Louvre just to see the empty wall where she had hung. After 2 years, she was finally found.
Let's look more closely at this painting and see what it is all about.
Great idea, Rosalie. Why don't you tell me what you see?
Well, I see a portrait of a woman who is seated. She is in a half-length pose, which is different than what was seen normally at the time this was created.
Exactly. The Mona Lisa is the earliest Italian portrait to focus so closely on the sitter in a half-length portrait. According to the Louvre, quote, such aspects of work with the three-quarter view of a figure against a landscape with the hands joined in the foreground were already extant in Flemish portraiture of the second half of the 15th century, end quote. Leonardo's half-length portrait was different.
Wow, that is really interesting. Her clothes are also interesting because it is rather simple, something that does not represent someone of aristocrat status.
Yes, that is a great observation. Her clothing is unremarkable. Neither the yellow sleeves nor pleats of her gown show signs of wealth or royalty, because she wasn't. She is the wife of Francesco del Giocondo. Her name was Lisa Gherardini. Francesco commissioned Leonardo to paint it during the Italian Renaissance. Well, let us now look at the visual aspects of the painting. According to PBS.org, the Mona Lisa represents a break with the Florentine tradition of outlining the painted image. Here, Leonardo perfected the technique known as sfumato, which translates 2. Vanished or evaporated. He blended everything without borders. His brushstrokes are so subtle they're invisible to the naked eye.
His technique of fumato sure is beautiful. The piece is so soft and adds to the emotion that she possesses.
Yes, Leonardo made happiness the main idea of this portrait. He has the horizon directly in line with her eyes. This draws the viewer's eyes deep into the portrait, deep into her soul. Leonardo's interest in the human body allowed him to create a realistic depiction of her. The way he has her torso facing one direction and her head and eyes just turned towards the viewer shows his ability to represent the positioning of the body.
It also looks like Leonardo was able to use the idea of linear perspective to create a sense of depth. The further the images are in the distance, the more muted the colors and the smaller they are.
He sure does. Well, as we wrap up this wonderful piece of artwork, there is one thought I want to put in your mind. According to Cousin, he states, quote, "There is not that much to see, yet this painting is the most famous in the world. The problem is that she has become so famous that we don't really see her anymore. What would be extraordinary would be to see the Mona Lisa for the very first time, as if you had never seen her before," end quote.